Can anyone affirm me that I am clearly audible? Thank you. So, uh, I will say good evening to everyone, and let's start our second day of our 3-day workshop on research methodology. So, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed participants, and distinguished speakers, a warm welcome to the day second of our 3-day workshop in research methodology. Today, we continue our journey of understanding how we can do better in academic research and contribute meaningful to the larger discourse of academic writing. So basically, today's workshop will provide you with a comprehensive exploration of academic research with the realm of ancient Indian studies. The speakers will go further into the fundamental foundational research concepts, engage into practical methodologies, help you develop essential skills to conduct a good academic research. For those participants who have joined in today, I would like to recap yesterday's sessions. Mr. Edo, he enlightened us on the value of research as well as basic elements of a good research methodology. And Miss Ruchira Sharma, she kind of, walked us how we can formulate a research question. The most important part of research methodology is research question, and she taught us about that and how we can gather our references and also how to choose the right research design for our research project. Basically, how to choose a good skeleton for your research tree. I want to make a moment and reiterate some parameters for getting certificates at the end of workshop. While certification hold undeniable value, we firmly believe that attending a workshop should offer more than just a certificate. So our focus for this workshop is on active learning rather than a passive approach. So basically, let me let me start presenting and yeah. Just 1 minute. Yeah. So let's let me आप कल भी ये बेसिक स्टेप्स जो हैं वर्कशॉप की वो समझाई गई थी बट लेट मी गो थ्रू देम अगेन. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल द स्टेप वन इज अटेंडिंग द वर्कशॉप जो कल थी आज है और कल होगी फ्रॉम 25th to 26th एंड देन उसके बाद फॉलोइंग द वर्कशॉप कंक्लूजन यू विल रिसीव एन एप्लीकेशन बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस and you have to solve that question paper and submit online by 28th December of this year. And by 29th December, we will give you the results. Please note that those of you who do not secure at least 50% in this paper will not earn any certificate. But those who pass the exam, and you will not only secure your certificate but you will also get an opportunity, listen to me carefully, you will also get an opportunity to become a published author of a research chapter. Those who clear the exam with 50% in our, you will have the opportunity to contribute to a research book, becoming authors and enhancing your CVs. So these were our 4 steps. And thank you to all for being here. And I'm excited to witness this incredible journey that lies ahead for each one of you. Now, without further ado, I begin the session number 5 by speaking about data collection techniques. So session 5, it's about data collection techniques. And yes, I would like to, I forgot to introduce myself. So I am Sanskriti Dikshit. I have done my BA from BHU and my master's from Deccan College, and I will be giving this session on data collection. a very important. So basically, the first thing is, what is data collection? So let's go through the definition. So data collection is basically, you see, to help you get the process started, the process started. Let's shine a little spotlight on data collection. So what exactly it is? Believe it or not, it is more than just using Google, Wikipedia, Yahoo. Furthermore, what are the different types of data collection, and what kind of data collection tools and data collection techniques exist for us researchers? So basically, data collection, as you can read the definition, it is a process from where you find solution to your research answers, to your questions, problems, and from it's basically from different sources. So basically, it's a process of collecting, evaluating information or data from multiple sources to find answers to your research problems, answer question, evaluate, and then with that data, you kind of try to evaluate the outcome, forecast trends, and possibilities. So this tool, it is used in almost every sector. Data collection is found in every sector. And you see, it it is not just a phase, it's just a phase, but an essential one. So it's an essential phase in all type of research analysis, decision making, including that is done in social science, business, and healthcare. And okay, so we before we enter the realm of data collection, you must answer these questions, once a genie said. And the three questions are, it's basically why, what, and then third is who, how, who, and when. How, who, and when. So why is, what is the goal or the purpose of research? Like, why are you doing that? So basically, why are you? Okay, is screen not visible? I want to ask some. Oh, wait, I did share the screen. I'm so sorry for this mishap. And is my screen visible now? I would like I have a small request to anyone who is present in this meeting, all my friends. If any another mishap happens, just just open your mic and tell it. There's no issue in that. Like I won't, it won't disturb my flow, because I am not getting messages. Like there is no notification coming to my right now. So should I continue? Okay. So let's continue, and then okay. So just let's go through first what I just told. So basically, first of all, I discussed the definition of data collection and how it helps us evaluate outcomes and answer the research problems. And then it's not just a phase, like it's just sorry, it's just a phase, but an essential one in all sort of research and data collection. And so before we enter the realm of data collection, you must answer these three questions, and they are why, what, and how, when, and how, who, and when. So what is the goal? What is the goal and the purpose of the research? Like, why are you trying to do it? Are you trying to do something new, or are you trying to add something to already existing? So you need to know that. Like, if you don't know, it will be very difficult for you to understand what type of data you are trying to collect. And then usse aata hai second point, that what kind of data are they planning or gathering. Like, do you want interviews, or do you want surveys, or do you want like lab data? What sort of data? It depends on why. And now who, how and when. सबसे पहले कौन सी methods use होंगी, like how it will be done. So basically what will be the methods, and the second will be who will be doing that. And it matters a lot because आपकी डेटा का जो क्या आपकी डेटा का जो credibility होता है वो काफी डिपेंड करता है. If it's a professor who is doing, or if it is just a student doing it, kind of, and what, like, it matters a lot. And then when is like when you are trying to do, and ये तीनों फैक्टर डिपेंड करते हैं पहले वाले दो पे. like तुम्हें कब करना है, it will depend on your goal, and it will depend on what kind of data you want. If you want to do a site survey, then it will the most best season is during winter season. So how this is how, why, and what affects it. Accurate data collection is necessary to make informed decisions, ensure quality assurance, and keep research integrity. Remember this line. Your good data collection techniques play a very big role into the credibility of your research, your thesis or dissertation, anything. If you have done it, very lightly, it is going to get it criticized a lot and maybe rejected. So let's come to the second point. Why do we need data collection? So it's just, as once Baby Yoda said, it's just it helps you to make right choices. It helps you to make informed choices. When you have a good proper set of data, you know how to approach in your research. Like if we are talking about research, it helps you to approach properly in your research. It matters, like before a judge, like he makes a ruling in a court, or a general creates a plan of attack, they must have all the relevant facts about that particular person. So this is where a good data comes in. So whether you are in a world of academia trying to conduct research, or a part of commercial sectors thinking of how to promote a new product, or you need data, and it will help you make better choices. Okay, so now let's come to the main important methods. So there are two type of methods: primary, secondary. Primary are those which are collected for the first time and are original in character, and secondary is which have been already collected and by someone else, and which have through some statistical analysis, like जो already हो चुके हैं और उन पे already काम हो चुका है. So let's talk about primary data collection. So anything that involves collecting original data from the source or the direct interaction of the respondents. It could be anything. It could be you working in a lab. Let's say you are doing RxF of your grass Bengals, or RxD of Fiance Bengals. It's primary data. If you are going and visiting a site, clicking pictures, talking to people, it's primary data. Like all those interviews, surveys, everything that is original is primary data. And now techniques for primary data collection. As I said, experiments, interviews, questionnaires, surveys, observation, and focus groups. So in archaeology, we mostly use experiments, interviews, these sort of things. These two, experiment and interviews, they are the main that are used in archaeology and ancient history. And secondary data collection. So it's basically using existing data that was already collected by someone else for the purpose different from the original intent. Like it was already collected, but it was not for the original intent. Let's say okay, so for example, I did my dissertation in glass Bengals from Manikpatna. So the data, the XRF analysis that I did and the color analysis that I did of them was primary data. Okay. Let's say the Excel sheet मैंने बनाई थी, it was a primary data. But when I was writing about glass, when I was studying about glass, like when in my dissertation, when I was giving an intro of glass, when I was writing about what is glass, what are its properties, and how, why I am doing XRF on it, it was secondary data. Because the original intent of it was not to assist the XRF process or XRF analysis, it was just to explain what is glass. So that was secondary data. Primary data was the work that I did. Okay. So secondary data techniques are published sources, online databases, government and institutional records, publicly available data, past research studies, basically everything, mostly everything that has already done is there. And data collection and archaeology. So let me help you this through an example. So I recently worked on a research topic that was Natraj Ravan Toll, and it is the name of this Natraj Ravan Toll. It is located in Udaipur village of Ganjavasudha Tehsil, Vidisha district, Bhopal Sambhag, and Madhya Pradesh. And I was given a task to write about a short research articles. So how I approached it. First of all, I tried to make usually we make the skeleton of our research paper very late or our research thesis very late. But what I did with all the available data that I had or whatever I knew, I tried to make a short skeleton, just a basic skeleton. Like what could I include in that? And then so basically it has three parts: the main sculpture about Nataraj as whole and other examples of Nataraj in the area. So in these three, it helped me identify where I need to do my surveys, where I need to do my literature. So basically what happened for main sculpture and other example of Sanat, like for the main sculpture I need to they all for main sculpture and the third one other Nataraj, my data collection was divided into two types. Like if you see, let's say one was people and other was books. In one I need to go, people is where I need to go and talk. I need to I need to visit the site, explore the site, survey it, interview people, take measurements. And the books is where I need to analyze the document. So I knew कि कहाँ पे मुझे क्या करना है. So for Nataraj as a whole, I need to do document analysis, which was mostly, it contains both primary and secondary, mostly secondary data. But in main sculpture and Nataraj in the area, it was mostly primary, because there was some mention, but the proper research, it was primary. Okay, so the places where you can find primary data, like mostly where you can find data and how you can use it, are these. So I used gazetteers, I used old ASI reports to research about the area, because they are the most the first original data set that I can find. I also did one thing, and I think everyone should do that. It will enhance write the keywords. Like what is your research topic and what could be related keywords to that. For me, it was Nataraj. For me, it was Udaipur. For me, it was Parmar dynasty or Nataraj in central India, like that. I made some keywords and it helped me, find articles. Like this is how I find this ASI report about Nataraj. It was not through Nataraj or it was not through Udaipur. It was just Parmar dynasty and Parmar dynasty. And I found this report where they mentioned Ravan Toll when they found it. So this is document analysis. And yes, before you start a book, do one thing, read the title, okay, note the author, go to the content, go through it, read it, and highlight it what you want to read. Like when I was doing my dissertation, I was given a book on ancient glass, history of ancient glass. But you see, I don't needed it. I don't, wait. So I don't needed it completely. Like पूरी book पढ़ने की ज़रूरत नहीं थी. I was just researching till medieval era. So what I did, I sorted and I saw till these 3 pages are something that only needs, that is something that needs that I need to study. I don't need to go to Mughal, that I don't need to go to colonial period or this period. I just did like that short 3 units that I only needed to study. And this is very important because it will save your time. So, and this is what document analysis is. It is basically you analyze a document, how it is useful to your research, and then you write it. Like then you use it in your research. And then field surveys and site exploration. Look, what are the type of explorations, archaeological exploration or excavations? You can find it, like you can apne sabne apne course mein पढ़ रहे होगे, it is very easy, but there are certain few things that I will advise. Listen, that is the advice that was given to me by my professor, and I will give it to you. It will help you very nicely in your data. Like the more you listen, the more patient you are, it will help you. And treat the people with respect, but also like a 5-year-old child. Like उनको एक 80 year के old आदमी की तरह treat करो respectfully, but be easy with them like a 5-year-old child. It will help you get information that normally you will not get, because the people are reluctant to talk. I mean, कोई ऐसे एकदम से आए, कुछ some will be very excited, so excited कि वो they are telling you anything. You have to filter that data out. Like you get the data and then you will filter it out, but there will be some who will not talk. So how you will make them talk? So basically 80 and 5, keep that in mind. Okay, so now, as I was giving you example about over enthusiastic people and how much they tell so many different things. And so basically you record it, you listen everything, you validate anything that this says to you. They say यहाँ पे let's say कि 50 मीटर के आदमी घूमते थे, agree with it, it's fine. Whatever they say, you agree with them. So record everything that you get, be it from document analysis, be it from labs, be it from interviews, and then catalog it. That is very important. Half of my work was done the moment I cataloged all my data through my analysis. Literally half of my work was done there, like half, no, even more than half work was done it, because it will give you an idea. Like when you have properly documented it, let's say for me it was on the basis of colors. First of all, how many types of colors, and then the different types of colors in glass Bengals. So the moment I catalog all my data in a proper manner, it it kind of gave a clear picture कि इस वाले टाइम तक इस वाले पर्टिकुलर लेट्स से साइट, मतलब इस पर्टिकुलर ट्रेंच में ये डेटा, मतलब ये पर्टिकुलर ग्लास वेंगल ज्यादा मिल रहे हैं, इसमें ये ज्यादा मिल रहे हैं. तो इट वाज टेलिंग अस अबाउट द ट्रेंड that was going on through the time, starting from 13th century to 16th century. Like 13 में ये थे, 14 में ये थे. तो catalog is जरूरी, and then revise. You see, your research is never stopped. आपको कुछ ना कुछ जल्दी मिल ही रहा होता है, बार बार मिल ही रहा होता है. इवन दो आपका काम खत्म हो गया होगा, लाइक प्राइमरी डेटा कलेक्शन खत्म हो गया होगा, बट थ्रू अदर सोर्सेज मोर डेटा विल बी कमिंग. सो नाउ यू हैव टू रिवाइज योर कैटलॉग, means you have to re-record, re-catalog, and then help it to again इसको दोबारा अपने कैटलॉग में डाल के re-catalog करके you have to compare it with your data and the other data that is available. And this is how you will get an interpretation. This is how you will be able to interpret. Alone with your data, it will be very hard for you. जरूरी है बाकी डेटा से कंपेयर करना. I hope I was helpful. And if you have any question, please email me. Or if you had any question, you can also drop me a message. And now I would like to ask the other person to start a session. After like I have done my session, I would like the other person to take over it. And so the next speaker is Rashmi, and let me leave. So I am done. Rashmi, you can take over now.
Good evening, everyone. This is Rashmi, and I have done my bachelor's in history, and then I pursued my master's in archaeology. And today I will be taking a session on data analysis and interpretation. So Data analysis and interpretation is one of the most crucial steps of any research work. What makes it so crucial or important is the fact that data analysis and interpretation is the part of your research which is done entirely by you. It's your work out there. When we are collecting data, when we are collecting literature sources, or when we are presenting the data, essentially we are combining or we are collecting data which is already available. Even when it's more quantitative or it's a data collected by yourself or it's a primary source, it's still a data which was already there. When it's something as abstract as antiquities, figurines, coins, it still is something that was there and you combined it and you maybe described it. But data analysis and interpretation is a part which is essentially done by you. You look at the data and your subjective opinions and your subjective reasoning conclusions are drawn. Data analysis and interpretation is what makes a research your research, whereas your literature review or your data collection is essentially you collecting the data. So it is important, and to interpret the data you first of all need to analyze the data. So what is data analysis? Data analysis is basically cleaning, transforming, modeling, and addressing the data in a way that it drafts out conclusions. And why is it important? It is important because when you are analyzing your data, you are understanding your data and you are looking at the trends and patterns in a way that will help you make conclusions of the data. At this point, it might sound really abstract, but with the next slides, you will get more idea of what we are talking about. This is an overview of the process of data analysis and interpretation. So we start with collecting the data, which has already been discussed. So we are going to move on to cleaning of data. So data cleaning. Data cleaning is a term which is usually associated with quantitative data, but that's not exactly the case. Even when you're looking at literature, when you first collect the data, you collect data which contains everything or every aspect that you're looking at. You do not really stick to the timelines, then you don't really stick to a specific research gap, then you are reading about a topic as much as you can and as much as you need. But once you have figured out your research gaps and you're sure that this is the topic that you want to tackle, then you need to filter out some sources that are going to act as the supporting sources. These are the sources that you're going to refer to while you're writing your paper, your article, or any other research work. So, to figure out those specific articles or those specific words or data set, filter them out is also a part of data cleaning. Data cleaning in quantitative data terms will consume more of eradicating of anomalies or any other error or irrelevant data, churning that out. And textual analysis and interpretation of data is data cleaning, but for qualitative data. Qualitative data, as we all know, it's all the literature text which is subjective, which is out there, secondary, primary sources, which are textual, visual. And what do you have to analyze in that is that you have to filter out biases. You need to understand the context of it, the person who is talking, how reliable the source is, because not every source is absolute and not every source is absolutely disregardable. You need every source. Every source can provide you insights, but it's up to you of what element of what text you want. And for that, analyzing a textual source or analyzing a visual source becomes really important. Data cleaning and textual analysis will lead you to statistical analysis of something. What is statistical analysis? Is basically you taking subjective text out there or subjective data and making it into more objective data. How we're gonna do that is you're gonna put out numerical values in it, or not, if not numerical, then absolute values in it. And that you then go with data visualization. Data visualization is basically making bar graphs, tables, charts, maps, everything that helps you to understand the data. Data visualization happens in two ways. First way of data visualization is what you do for yourself to understand the data better. Well, the graphs you make, the charts you make, the tables you make for you to understand the data. And the second part is for your readers. The data visualization you do so that the readers can understand. The person who is reading your text would understand what you're trying to make sense of, or what you're trying to argue. Data visualization for yourself, when you do, then you realize that the interpretation part of it becomes really easy, because now what you have to do is literally describe that visualization as your interpretation. And if you want, you can add or subtract sources or case studies to strengthen your argument. Your argument is based entirely upon your interpretation, which is just a description of your visualization, which then leads you to a solid conclusion. So, if we have to take an example, a very juvenile example for everyone to understand how this process will work. So, let's take an example which is sort of related to the topic of the workshop, which is trade and prosperity in Bombay through traveler's account, and the timeline we have is 15 to 1900 CE. So, if the question is something, if your research gap or a research question is like, was there an impact of weather on the trade during the time? So now your data collection would be all the sources. You will look at the gazetteers, you will look at the merchant records, you will look at journals, you would look at people who are describing the town, the travelers who are describing the city, and you are gonna then move on to cleaning of data. So cleaning of data will all the data that is not related to the trade, the weather, and the timeline. Any text that is predating 1500s would be removed. That is your data cleaning process. Textual analysis and interpretation. So when you are looking through journals, there are biases because it's a person's personal opinion which might not be fact. In certain situation, a document drafted by a certain community might be done in order for their personal agendas. So you need to look at the biases, and sometimes the biases are not intentional. The unintentional biases can be found when you are talking about weather. So if a British Merchant Navy official's journal, let's suppose say, has mentioned that the rains were very heavy, so you would understand, or you would think that the rains would be heavy because the weather in London is always wet. It's raining. It's heavy rains. So for him to compare, and if he is saying that the rains were heavy, that means there is some validity to the statement. But if a person who comes or hails from a dry area, arid area, and he says that the rains were troubling, then you might sit back and think once, is this source reliable? Because for him, even slight rains could be troublesome, which is not really the case for everyone else. Obviously, he might be factually right or wrong, but you need to think about it, which comes in your textual analysis and interpretation. Going towards statistical analysis of it. So at this point, you're going to take a data which says what was the trade like. So what was the trade like in January, February, March, April, May, and so on. And you will correlate it with weather. What was it during summers, winters, rainy season, monsoons, and spring, autumn, whatever your lines are, parameters are, you're going to fix the data accordingly. If you see that there are a lot of records which says that the trade in September, October, November, December, you keep on marking that. And you keep on marking when was the rains. Rains were in May, June, July, August. And then you see where was the trade there. Data visualization helps you here. So when you put all of this information on an Excel sheet, let's say, you will churn out a graph which will say the trade in January was so and so, and the weather in January was so and so. And you will come to a point where you will see that the rains were very heavy in May, June, July. And the trade at the same time was minimal. There was very less trade, or there was a drastic decline in trade, which then picked up again from September. So, from this, you can interpret that during harsh rains, the trade suffered, and when the monsoons died out, the trade flourished. So, your conclusion, that will be your interpretation. Now, your interpretation can be as good as it is, that when there was rains, the trade was minimal. But you can support it with supporting statements such as in someone in 12th century said that during harsh winters trade suffered. You can quote it here to strengthen your point, and hence you will draw your conclusion that weather did impact the trade. And so there are two types of data analysis, because there are two kinds of data collection. You have your quantitative data and you have your qualitative data. Quantitative data is basically everything that is objective, your surveys, your experiment collections, and if you're working on sculpture, so the fabric type, everything is quantitative. The margin of error is very small here. There is margin of error, but the answer would be absolute. To analyze these results, you do descriptive statistics, you do inferential statistics, which is basically pointing out differences, and you do regression analysis, which tell you if this variable impacts this. So in this example, you would say, did weather affect the trade? And it focuses on patterns. So in this case, it would be like every monsoon trade suffered because of the weather. So this is a pattern, and you can make predictions out of it that next year also the same thing will happen. Qualitative data analysis. Qualitative data is more tricky to deal with because it is subjective, and you need to pay very minute attentions to everything. You need to focus on sentimental analysis, word frequency, thematic, which is every bias known. You might sometimes your own personal bias would feel like, okay, what this person is saying might be right because you believe it, but that doesn't really make that statement right. So you need to cross check it with 1,000 people or 1,000 sources. 1,000 is an overestimation, it's an hyperbole, but you need to fact check it every time. And this will help you understand the context of the research, which again is one of the major massive elements of research. So qualitative data is a myth. If people say that in humanities quantitative data is not non-existing, it's a myth. If you're working with archaeology, if you're working in psychology, let's say, and if you are working with surveys is a big part of humanities research, and all of these come under quantitative research. And quantitative research is objective in nature, so it needs to be dealt in a different way than the quantitative nature. uh, Qualitative nature, nature of something is subjective, so you need to check other persons and your personal bias while working with that kind of data. Then we move on to data analysis tools. So when you're talking about qualitative analysis, when it's subjective, it's up to you how to decipher it. There is not really a lot of tools which will aid you in order to figure out those biases. It is up to you and your reading and your knowledge, that and you can fact check it to find out the biases, to find out the errors, to find out the hyperboles, to find out the agenda behind the written text. But when it comes to quantitative data, because it's an objective numerical value, a lot of tools to help you. You have Excel, you have Tableau, you have Python, you have R. So these things differ in level. Excel being the easiest, then come Tableau, and then come Python and R. Excel basically will help you with everything mostly, but if the numerical values goes beyond, if the sample size exceeds 10,000 and a lakh, you would need to take aid from Tableau or Python. So with quantitative data, we think that we can manually do it, but we cannot, because once the value, if you have more than 30 to 60 sources or sample sizes, it becomes really difficult to handle it manually, and also it's time consuming. And when it's time consuming, it is hindering your research. So what you do, you use these tools because the margin of error is less, and then they help you save time, and then they help you make out visualization. All of these three tools are really good for making visualization. You can put your information in Excel, they will give you all kinds of graphs, line graphs, pie charts, maps. Tableau, Python, you can make maps on these things very easily, and that's how you can visualize your data. and which will help you understand your data very well. So, after your analysis of data, we come at interpretation and conclusions. So, the first step we'll go through is statistical and contextual significance. So, statistical and contextual significance is basically you telling why your data was important for this specific research, and you will fit into your literature gaps. Then comes visualization or interpretation. Again, this visualization thing, as I said, it's important for you to understand your data, because once the data is in a table format or a chart format or a map format, even it will be easier for you to understand your data. Because sometimes when we are manually doing it, we overestimate the values. Because of our personal bias, we will feel that this point is more important than the point B. But when you look at the objective data, it might be different. So that's why data visualization becomes really important for you to understand and for presenting the data. So just a minute I'll take to tell you importance of presenting a data. When you put visual tools for the readers, it's the best thing you can do in your research. It is generally overlooked, but it's one of the most important things you need to do in your research. Visualization helps in people to understand your work, and in a way that it sometimes we forget that not everyone is well versed with the topic that we are dealing with. Like in this, if you're working with trade networks, if you're working with east west coast ports and trade channels, not everyone would know what you're talking about. So just putting a map there would help everyone in understanding that what you are trying to say. And also, let's talk about our generation that is coming up. The attention span of people is reducing, so you need to keep them engaged with your material. You need vibrance, you need graphs, you need tools. They will not wait to understand it themselves. You will need to make them understand what your point is. And data visualization, one of the best ways to do it. The more graphs, the more pictures, the more maps you will present them, the more they will understand it. If you're talking about a coin and you are describing the coin, it will be better to you just put a picture there to save yourself some words and for the other person to understand it better. So data visualization important in presentation as well as understanding the data, because once the data visual is there, your interpretation is just describing that visual. And limitation and caveats. So limitations are something that you need to address in your research. It makes your research more sound. No research is absolute. Someone will come and tell you that your research is not absolute or is wrong. And to make it sound, you need to address those limitations and caveats. So, and in like this research had these limitation, it did not took this into account, or the data set was not that much or apt for it, anything. And then you draft out your conclusion out of this. So let's continue with the last example that we took of the trade, weather and trade. So your conclusion would just at this point be that this research aimed into finding whether there is a relationship between weather and trade. And the data set showed that the September to December the trade flourished, while during the monsoons, which is May to August, the trade declined. So from this we can infer that the weather had a substantial impact on the trade, but the data from January to May being absent or being unrelated, we cannot say that weather was the primary or the prime factor that impacted the trade. So in this situation, you are addressing the limitations. So you can say your conclusion would be, so weather had a significant impact on trade, but we cannot say for sure was it the only or the prime factor that impacted trade. So this is how you're going to present your data interpretation. Your data interpretation will tell you everything. It will tell you your limitations, it will tell you your strengths, and data interpretation is just describing your visualizations. You interpret the data which you have analyzed, arranged, interpreted, and to strengthen your interpretation, you always bring in external sources, external case studies, and this is how you end your data interpretation. So I hope it was helpful for all of you attending. And if you have any questions, I would love to answer that. And now I'll give it over to Gargi.
Hello, hi everyone. I am Gargi, and I'll be presenting today about academic writing. I'm really sorry I'm not able to keep my camera on because I'm still outdoors. So before long, I'm gonna present. Okay. Is my screen visible to everyone? I hope it is. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, talking about academic writing is one of those important aspects of research methodology where you present your research and you showcase your findings and research methodology and your research topic and the findings that you have got. Uh, the introduction to academic writing. Basically, academic writing is all about putting your information in a formal language and letting them know the conclusions and your finding and more information about it in a formal language, yet keeping it very, very simple. It's very important to understand that whenever we write anything, whatever the research or topics are, whatever that we are writing about, it should be easy to understand for anybody who's not into that subject, who does not know anything about that subject and is a proper newbie to that particular concept. Even if I'm reading a research paper about physics or chemistry, the research paper should be written in a sort of way which I, having no knowledge or no previous context of it, would understand. Okay, so the importance of formal language, yet keeping it simple, it's very important. It becomes very important because it creates a foundation, making our work clear, precise, and professional. It should follow specific rules like using third person language, avoiding shortcuts, and sticking to certain formats. So formal writing shows how serious we are about our research and helps us communicate very effectively. When researchers use a formal style, it makes their work more believable, ensuring that their methods, results, and conclusions are presented clearly and without bias. So, being formal not only makes researchers look professional, but also helps when their work goes through peer review and gets published in respective journals and so on. So formal writing is more than just rules. It's a commitment to high standards, honesty, and in the pursuit of scientific knowledge. I've written an example here, which shows the difference between a statement which can be presented in two types of writing, formal and informal. I have another example here. So it's as a informal way of putting it up would be, in my opinion, climate change will be bad for future generations. And right in a formal way, I would say reports suggest that climate change will be detrimental to future generations. So you can see the difference between the two statements, and the impact that it inevitably creates. Next is the structuring an academic paper and a structure to any research paper. Basically, there are two types of structures. One is chronological and the other is thematic. And as you can see, chronology goes whenever you are whenever you're writing about a historical paper, historical developments, and the thematic structure would be when you write about a lot of aspects, the same topic or the same concept. All right. So, in that, the most important would be the introduction and the background section to any academic paper. It plays a very, very crucial role because it sets the context and it shows the purpose of the study. It outlines the problem statement, provides a rationale for the research, and offers a review of relevant literature. A well-structured introduction will capture the reader's attention, and it creates a very strong foundation for the rest of the paper, right? So the structure has there's a very set structure and a very universal structure that is adopted for a lot of papers, may be it academic papers, thesis, projects, research, anything. It starts with the title, which clearly identifies the subject of the research. Then comes abstract, and abstract is a very important and very tricky part also, because it has to be it has to show concise. It has to actually summarize the whole paper, the entire paper, but it has to actually attract the reader's attention and then give a summarization of the whole paper, but in a very concise manner. It has to only be a paragraph or so. Next comes the introduction. This presents the research question, objectives, and the hypothesis. So it would be like the title sets the stage, the abstract would provide you a snapshot, and the introduction gives you the research context and purpose. Further, we go into the chapters. So it starts with having a literature review. So that would be it analyzes existing studies to provide context to the research that we will be talking about. Then comes methodology. So here you can provide you can edit your chapters according to your wish and will, and according to the topic that you have chosen. Okay. The next comes results. So results and discussion. Results and discussion are very, very important, and they are used in all of the scientific academic papers and research papers. But there is a very fine line between results and discussion, which we will be talking about in the next slides. We're just giving you a preview here. So the results section basically unveils our discoveries, while the discussion section adds meaning, exploring what the findings imply and acknowledging study limitations. Next would be conclusions and references. Conclusion summarizes key findings and their significance. Now when we talk about references, references, as we all know, are very, very important. References ensures proper credit to previous studies, and it lists all the sources following a very specific citation styles. So we know there are different citation styles which are used in different research papers, basically. But on the whole, I think the AP and MLAs are used in more humanities based, whereas the Harvard and Chicago styles are used in more scientific papers. That's what I have been practicing. All right. Next is the importance of crafting a very solid literature review. So literature review is a very essential component of academic writing and research methodology. It involves critically evaluating existing literature, like we discussed before, to identify knowledge gaps, establish theoretical foundation for the study, and provide context for the research. This is very important because literature review gives us an idea also about the niches that have been researched before and what are the new things that we are coming up with the current research. It's a crafted research review would demonstrate the researcher's understanding of the field and showcases their ability to synthesize and present information effectively. It's like we said, it sets the stage. A robust literature review is the backbone of any scholarly work because it provides a solid foundation upon which the new research is built. It serves as a comprehensive exploration of existing studies, and it offers insights into the current state of knowledge on a particular subject. Moreover, strong literature review would also demonstrates the researcher's familiarity with the relevant literature, but also critically evaluating the methodologies, the findings, the contributions of previous works, etc. And by identifying gaps, controversies, or trends in the existing body of knowledge, it assures the significance and originality of the upcoming research that we are conducting. It also helps situate the study with the broader academic context, and this is very important, showcasing the researcher's awareness of the intellectual landscape, and he knows what he's delving into and what the previous researchers have been talking about. So basically, in a sense, a strong research review not only informs the direction of the current research, but also establishes the researcher's credibility and expertise in the subject that he's, or in the field that he's chosen. Next would be developing clear research questions and objectives. So this is also a very important aspect of academic writing, because to know what the research is about, we need the researcher should have created a certain research questions and answer them eventually in the course of his paper. So again, there's a very fine line between writing research questions or hypotheses and having objectives to them. I've given an example here where it shows how does social, if we talk about how does social media affect teenagers, this is what we want. This is the hypothesis. This is the area we want to research about. But while we write about it, while we have to put it in the paper, we would write it in a clear manner, and we would say, what is the correlation between daily social media usage and the prevalence of anxiety problems in teenagers aged 13 to 18? So this creates a picture in the reader's mind, and it also tells them what exactly are we talking about, what aspect of social media are we talking about which affects the teenagers. So developing clear research questions and objectives, it's a critical phase in the research process, guides the entire study and ensuring focus and coherence. Research questions should be specific, answerable, and aligned to the overall goals of the subject, of the study. Whereas objectives, on the other hand, they provide a roadmap for achieving those research questions. They are like the setting stones of how we will be going about answering the question. So, in a sense, research questions' nature would be they're broad inquiries that define the overarching theme or the topic of the subject or the study. And the purpose of them is to guide the overall direction and provide a sense of concluding or an inference or a purpose. So, on the other hand, the objectives are very, very specific and measurable. They're achievable statements that detail the steps the researcher will be taking to answer the questions, like I said before. And their format is usually very structured and declarative statements, like we can see here. To assess the average daily hours teenagers spend on social media, this is how we will be going. This is how we'll be collecting the data as well. To identify the common signs and symptoms of anxiety in the chosen age group, to examine the correlation between daily social media usage and the reported prevalence of anxiety problems. The last would be to explore potential moderating factors such as family support or academic stress. So these four objectives are how we will be answering the previous question, which is what is the correlation between daily social media usage and the prevalence of anxiety problems in teenagers aged 13 to 18. So that is how we distinguish them, but they're very, very important and should be structured one after the other. So just to give a summary of it, it would be that objectives break down the broader research questions into manageable tasks, specifying what the researcher aims to accomplish within the study. They are like instrumental in guiding the research process. They help in determining data collection methods and facilitating the analysis and interpretation of the results. Okay, the next is similar to what we discussed about, like research questions and objectives, and presenting finds and discussions also have very thin line between them, and are also an integral part of any research paper. Presenting the findings and discussing the results is a crucial step in academic writing. Researchers should present the data clearly and concisely using appropriate visuals. So, findings have visuals, tables, graphs, and charts in them. This allows the reader to understand the patterns and relationships in the data, how it helps to understand the data and what are the inferences of the data. But the discussion section, it will provide an in-depth analysis of the findings, discussing their implications, limitations, and potential future research directions. Okay, so for findings, the nature of the content and what it contains would be it's primarily concerned with presenting raw data, facts, and observations obtained through the research process, and its objective is to provide a clear and objective snapshot of what the study discovered without interpretation. Their presentation style would be visual aids, findings often presented using visual aids like tablets, charts, and graphs. Statistical analysis makes it easier for the reader to understand and know what sort of background it has. It also has to be very clear because the findings should be focused on transparency and clarity. It just should be displaying the results. It just should show, for example, if I am doing a percentage or any, if I'm adding, it would be, if I have my data would be, I want to see the number of people in this, number of people using Instagram, or number of people using Facebook. I would, having the data, I would show probably 26% used in Instagram or 15% use Facebook. So that would be just showing the findings, not about why it's only 15% using Facebook, or why are they only 26% using Instagram. All right. So, talking about that, when we move to discussion is basically interpretation analysis of the findings of what we have deducted. So, it contains providing a very deeper analysis of what the results mean in the context of the research question and the relevant literature that we have showed. Uh, the objective of it is to aim to make sense of the data, draw connections, and offer insights into the broader implications of the study. It also helps in contextualizing the whole thing. There is literature integration. It discusses and integrates the findings with existing literature, comparing and contrasting the results with prior studies or to establish a context of it. It also helps in linking objectives. So the researchers in this section connect the findings to the research objectives or questions, explaining how the results addresses the initial research and goals. That is what happens in the discussion section. Further, the research also discusses the limitations of the study and limitations of the data findings in throughout the study that he has observed. So the researchers basically acknowledge their limitations or any limitations of the study and discuss how these limitations may have influenced the results. That it's a very important aspect, because it helps the reader to understand that the research is not biased with his findings and the research topic that he has chosen. The implications, it also shows the implications of it would be that the discussion explores the practical and theoretical implications of findings, answering the so what question. Like, this is the findings, so what about it? It basically answers, so what? Right? So in the sense, the findings section is the presentation of the raw data, while the discussion section is the intellectual journey behind the data. So we come to the concluding of the academic paper, and conclusion is a very important part of the academic paper, because this section is considered to be the highest section, which gives an impact. It has to include all the aspects of the research paper that has been done, and it gives whatever because the reader would always remember the last part that he's read about the paper, and that would always remain in his mind. That's the fresh part that's the information that he's been reading. And this is the section where you are allowed to have the most impact. This should be the most impactful section of your research paper, right? And when we go about writing the conclusion, to always remember about these key points. First would be summarizing the key findings. What we do in this, that we give a very we briefly. I cannot stress enough on without any background of the conclusion. Second would be to restate the research questions. To what do I mean by restating the research questions? That we have to again go back to the research questions and write in a format that you've answered them. You have to basically give an answer to the research questions that you have set for your paper. For example, it would be our study has aimed and has addressed these questions and these are the findings of the questions, and we have successfully gone round to it. All right. The third would be to emphasize significance. We have to, after restating the questions, after us letting them know that we have answered those questions, we have to again emphasize on the significance of it. Why is it important? Why have we chosen these questions, and why is it important to study about it? So we have to highlight the broader significance of the study in the context of the field. Why have we chosen this particular niche topic in the whole field, and why was this important to study? So that is what is important. Next is discussing the limitations. Again, discussing the limitations helps the reader to understand that, okay, this is not a final. The researcher understands that there are some gaps in the research paper, and that he has no biases in it, and he's not claiming it to be the law, and he's not claiming it to be the final sort of answer to the topic that he's chosen. That there could have been limitations in collecting the data. There could have been limitations to interpreting them. There could have been limitations to a lot of aspects of the paper. So it's very important to discuss the limitations at the end. The next is suggesting areas of future research. So it comes with it. So it's a pretext to discussing limitations after we address them. After we address it, yeah, we may have missed some parts. We may have not been able to complete. We have maybe not be able to touch those questions. So these are the areas where future researchers could work on. If they could work on the limitations of the data collection that we could not do. So it's a very important part too. It shows that there are potentials to the avenues of future research. It shows that if you're suggesting there are areas for the future research, suggests that this paper is potential, and that it's potential because you've chosen this topic, and this topic is potential to have more research done. So it again emphasizes the significance of your paper. Next would be the conclusion should end with a strong closing statement. So it has to be very, very professional, but it has to also show that it has to again answer your research question. It has to end with a very strong closing statement. Right. The next is again to avoid, while doing all of this, to avoid any introducing information. This is a very common habit that I have that I used to do in my research paper also. That if while concluding, I would write about something that I've missed in the discussion part, and again I would write it thinking that, oh, I've missed it, so I'll just conclude it. I'll just put it in the conclusion part. No, conclusion should only be about. It should actually be it should be a continuation of abstract or the introduction, and basically the continuation of all small apps, structures that we've talked about before, and it should absolutely not involve any new information. So just the avoiding any introduction of new information should be the baseline for conclusion of any academic paper. With that, I really thank you for being here, and thank you for being so patient throughout my presentation. Uh, I would also like to thank all the presenters who've presented before. I'll just stop sharing the screen 1 second. Thank you. With that, we have come to the end of day 2. I'm sorry if there are any questions. I would be very happy to answer them. Just put it in the comment section below. And yeah, with that, we have come to the end of our day 2, the workshop. And I hope that everyone has learned a thing or two about data collection, analysis techniques, as well as academic writing. I really thank all the presenters and the speakers. It was lovely knowing and lovely having so many insights and valuable insights at that. And before we part ways, I want to take a minute and reiterate that at the end of this workshop, the participants will have to attempt an application-based exam. Only those who qualify the exam with 50% and above will be given the certificate. So please ensure you understand the concepts well and learn how to apply them in your academic research. And hope this workshop will help you to achieve that. Those who clear the exam, those who clear the exams with 50% and above will be given the opportunity to contribute to a research book, henceforth becoming authors in further enhancing your CVs. So it's a very exciting opportunity. I wish all the participants all the best. Also, join us again tomorrow at 9 p.m. IST for the final day of our workshop, where we'll delve into topics including research proposal writing and so on. So until then, take care and stay curious. Thank you so much.